So I asked y'all what your predictions are. You answered in full force, as you always do. We appreciate you for that. Dingo got the party started. He says he thinks Texas beats Michigan handedly. The spread is Texas, give or take a touchdown. He thinks it sounds like they make it a little bit more definitive than that. If we're talking about Texas decisively beating Michigan, that to me would look somewhere in the range of 2 touchdowns, which again would be impressive given the fact that Michigan won the whole darn thing last year. We pick Texas. We do not think they win the game by 14 points. But if that were to happen, what would that mean? What would that look like? Texas fans, Michigan fans, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. Whoever you are a fan of, I promise you, we're talking about your team. We're talking college football all year long. We appreciate y'all in advance for locking in and being subscribed. I think what it would essentially say about Texas is everything hypothetically we've been saying about Texas over the course of this offseason tangibly is seen in this game. Because a Texas win, to me, would look something like, okay, well, Texas on the perimeter has some skill players to make it really tough on Michigan, and Michigan's secondary is really good, but maybe, just maybe, Texas wins enough of those matchups outside. Quinn Ewers has a good enough day to where they win the football game. That wouldn't be surprising. But if they win it definitively, that to me means that Texas in the trenches was able to have their way against Michigan, and that's saying something about Michigan now too. Because Michigan, I think, in the interior of the defensive line, might be the best in America. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, 2 of the best defensive linemen in all of college football. That's going to be a salty outfit. So if Texas can run the football, that will, I think, lead to them being able to throw the football effectively, even more so than I think they already will be able to. That would say a lot about Texas. Maybe more importantly, if you're able to stop the run against Michigan, what does that say about Texas and their chops on their defensive line? Because all the things we talked about this offseason were Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. They're gone to the league. They were 2 All-Americans. How do they respond? They were so good against the run. Michigan is dependent on running the football to win this game, to score points. And that's not me speaking down on Davis Warren. That's just the identity of who this team is. They are going to pound the rock for 4 quarters, and their bet is in the 3rd and 4th quarter, we will be more big dog than you, and you will break, and we will win the game. And quite frankly, we've seen them do that many a time, has Michigan. But if Texas is able to stop the run and handle Michigan up front, how do we look at them when it comes to the rest of their path to potentially playing for a national championship? Tell you one thing, I feel a lot better from a Texas fan when Georgia comes to town October 19th. I feel a lot better about what we have in the trenches because, again, all these things we're talking about with Texas competing for a national title, a lot of it has to do with Quinn Ewers. But to get over that hump and to actually hoist that kind of hardware, you have to have what is required in the interior of your offensive and defensive line. Now, offensively, you bring back 4 of 5 starters from a year ago, so I think you feel pretty good in that department. But on the defensive line, again, you're asking some guys to step up that are a little bit of maybe not new characters, but in different roles. Like Alfred Collins is a guy that you have to have in this game, defensive tackle for Texas. If you're able to do that and control the line of scrimmage against Michigan, that is tangible evidence that, hey, okay, Texas has what it takes to go toe-to-toe with the big boys of college football in the trenches. And we kind of saw a little bit of this last year against Alabama. Look at the box score. The rushing numbers were about even. But we were at that game. We were on the field when Texas was driving with the football. And quite frankly, they could have scored again on Alabama. They could have made that a little bit more of a ugly win over Alabama in terms of that final score. Decided to kneel it out, but they were moving the football on the ground against an SEC Nick Saban coach team. Now, Alabama got better since that game, but what I think is important to note here is if Texas is able to have the success that our guy believes that they eventually could have in this game against Michigan, that would say a lot about their potential for this year, of course. But I think when you zoom out a little bit further, it says a lot about Steve Sarkisian and the way that he's been able to replenish and build this roster to be ready for the SEC, to be ready to compete at the Tier 1 level when it comes to aspiring to win a national championship and so on and so forth. That would, I think, say a lot about Steve Sarkisian as a builder. Because right now it's a lot about how he's a great play caller and a great quarterback whisperer and recruiter and offensive guru. If they are able to beat Michigan in the trenches, we better sing his praises as to how they've been able to build this roster on the defensive side as well, especially up front. So again, we have Texas winning that game. If they win by double digits, that would surprise us. But again, that's what it would require, and that's, I think, what we'd be saying about Texas if they were to have that kind of showing in the trenches to win that game in a decisive fashion. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.